Most men destroy their romantic chances before they even begin. They enter conversations believing that being nice, agreeable, and safe will somehow ignite desire in a woman. This is the fundamental lie that keeps you trapped in the friend zone forever. Here's the truth no one wants to tell you. Romantic attraction isn't created by being pleasant. It's created by being present, powerful, and paradoxical. Today, I'm going to show you how ancient Stoic principles can transform your interactions from forgettable small talk into magnetic conversations that naturally build romantic tension. But first, let me destroy a belief that's killing your success with women. You think chemistry is some mystical force that either exists or doesn't. You believe attraction is random, uncontrollable, something that happens to you rather than something you create. This victim mindset is exactly why you've been having the same predictable conversations that lead nowhere. The Stoics understood something profound about human nature. We are attracted to what we cannot fully possess or predict. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the power of controlled detachment. Seneca spoke of maintaining inner sovereignty while engaging with the world. These weren't abstract philosophical concepts, they were practical tools for creating influence and magnetic presence. When you enter a conversation trying to be liked, you've already lost. You're operating from scarcity, desperation, need. Women sense this immediately. It triggers their biological programming to categorize you as safe, predictable, and ultimately unsexy. The shift begins with understanding this counterintuitive truth. The less you need her approval, the more she desires your attention. Let me tell you about the paradox of pursuit. In nature, predators don't chase prey by running directly at them. They circle, they create patterns, they build tension through strategic restraint. The gazelle isn't attracted to the lion's neediness, it's captivated by its controlled power. Your conversations should operate on the same principle. Instead of pursuing her verbally, you create space for her to pursue you mentally and emotionally. Here's how this looks practically. Most men enter conversations with an agenda. This is weak frame control. You're basically interviewing for her approval. Strong frame control means you're evaluating whether she deserves access to your world. You're not performing for her, you're discovering if she's worth your time and energy. This shift in perspective changes everything about how you communicate. Your questions become more probing. Your statements carry more weight. Your presence becomes something she has to earn rather than something you freely give away. The first principle is controlled curiosity. Instead of asking safe questions like, "What do you do for work?" or "Where are you from?" questions that any man could ask you dig deeper into her character and values. Try something like, "What's the most rebellious thing you've ever done?" Or, "Tell me about a time you stood up for something you believed in, even when it was hard." Notice what these questions do. They bypass her rehearsed responses and force her to access deeper parts of herself. They also communicate that you're not satisfied with surface-level interaction. You're a man who demands substance. But here's the crucial element. After you ask these questions, you listen with complete presence. Not the fake active listening where you're preparing your next clever response. Real presence, the kind that makes her feel like she's the only person in the room. This is where most men fail. They mistake conversation for performance. They think they need to be entertaining, funny, impressive. This is exhausting for both of you. Instead, practice what the Stoics called profound attention. When she speaks, you're not thinking about what you'll say next. You're genuinely curious about who she is beneath her social conditioning. This level of attention is so rare in our distracted world that it becomes immediately attractive. She'll start leaning in, speaking more softly, sharing more personal details. Not because you asked for them, but because your presence creates a safe space for vulnerability. The second principle is strategic disagreement. Most men are terrified to disagree with women. They think agreement equals attraction. This is backwards thinking. Attraction requires polarity. Agreement eliminates polarity. When you constantly agree, you become an extension of her thoughts rather than an independent man with his own perspective. This doesn't mean being contrarian or argumentative. It means having genuine opinions and expressing them calmly, even when they differ from hers. If she says she loves a particular movie, and you don't, say so. "Interesting, I thought it was overrated. Here's why." Then explain your perspective without needing her to adopt it. Watch what happens. She'll either defend her position more passionately, which creates emotional investment, or she'll become curious about your different perspective. Either response builds attraction because you've shown her you're not just another validation-seeking male. The third principle is emotional leadership. Women are constantly testing men to see if they can maintain their center under pressure. This isn't conscious manipulation, it's biological programming designed to identify emotionally strong partners. When she says something challenging, provocative, or even slightly insulting, most men either get defensive or immediately try to smooth things over. Both responses fail the test. Instead, you respond from your center. If she makes a sarcastic comment about men, you might smile and say, "I can see you've had some interesting experiences with my gender." No defensiveness, no counterattack, just calm acknowledgement that shows you're not easily rattled. This is emotional leadership. You're not reactive to her emotional states. You remain grounded in your own emotional sovereignty. This stability becomes incredibly attractive because it signals that you can handle whatever life throws at you. The fourth principle is calibrated vulnerability. Most men think vulnerability means sharing their insecurities, fears, and problems. This creates the opposite of attraction. It positions you as someone who needs to be rescued rather than someone who can provide security. True vulnerability is sharing your authentic self without neediness. It's talking about your passions, your values, your vision for your life. It's showing her your depth without asking for her validation. When you share something meaningful about yourself, you're not seeking approval. You're offering insight into who you are as a man. This kind of vulnerability is powerful because it comes from strength, not weakness. But timing matters. You don't lead with deep personal revelations. You build rapport first, create safety, then gradually reveal more layers of yourself. This creates what psychologists call the escalation of intimacy, the natural progression that builds romantic connection. The fifth principle is comfortable silence. Most men are terrified of conversational gaps. The moment there's a pause, they fill it with nervous chatter, weak humor, or pointless questions. This communicates anxiety and social weakness. Confident men are comfortable with silence. They understand that not every moment needs to be filled with words. Sometimes the most powerful communication happens in the spaces between words. When there's a natural pause in conversation, don't rush to fill it. Let it exist. Look at her. Smile slightly if you want. Let the tension build. You'll be amazed how often she breaks the silence with something more personal or meaningful than what came before. This comfort with silence communicates several things. You're not anxious, you're not performing, you're genuinely present, and you're confident enough in yourself that you don't need constant verbal validation. Now, let's talk about the transition from friendly to romantic. This is where most men get stuck. They build great rapport, have meaningful conversations, but never create the romantic tension necessary for attraction. The shift happens through what I call intentional ambiguity. You begin introducing subtle elements that could be interpreted romantically, but you do it in a way that maintains plausible deniability. This might be holding eye contact a beat longer than normal. It might be making an observational comment about something you find attractive about her, delivered matter-of-factly, rather than as a compliment seeking approval. You have this way of tilting your head when you're really thinking about something. It's interesting to watch your mind work. Notice what this does. It shows you're paying attention to details about her that go beyond the obvious. It's personal without being invasive. It could be romantic interest or simply keen observation. This ambiguity creates intrigue. The key is calibration. You're constantly reading her responses and adjusting accordingly. If she seems receptive, you can gradually increase the romantic undertone. If she seems uncomfortable, you can easily step back without awkwardness. This is where Stoic principles become crucial. You're not attached to any particular outcome. You're not trying to force romantic interest. You're simply expressing your authentic appreciation and seeing how she responds. Attachment to outcome is the enemy of attraction. When you need her to respond a certain way, you become manipulative rather than attractive. When you're genuinely okay with whatever response you get, you maintain the relaxed confidence that women find irresistible. Let me share a story that illustrates these principles in action. I once watched a friend completely transform his dating life by applying Stoic approaches to conversation. Previously, he would enter interactions trying to impress women with stories about his accomplishments, his travels, his possessions. He thought attraction was about demonstrating value through external markers. After studying Stoic philosophy, he changed his entire approach. Instead of talking about what he had done, he focused on understanding who she was. Instead of trying to be impressive, he became genuinely curious. The shift was remarkable. Women began describing him as mysterious, intriguing, different from other men. Not because he had changed who he was, but because he had learned to express who he was with genuine confidence, rather than seeking validation. His conversations became explorations, rather than performances. Women found themselves sharing things they rarely talked about with anyone. They felt understood in a way that was both comfortable and exciting. The romantic tension built naturally because he wasn't forcing it. He was simply being a man who knew his own worth and was curious about whether she was worth knowing better. This brings us to the deeper psychological principle at work here. Women are attracted to men who live in their own reality rather than constantly seeking approval from hers. When you enter conversations trying to fit into her world, you automatically position yourself as a follower rather than a leader. When you invite her into your world through your perspectives, your curiosity, your calm confidence, you position yourself as someone worth following. This doesn't mean being domineering or dismissive of her thoughts and feelings. It means being centered in your own identity while remaining genuinely curious about hers. Think of it this way. Most men are like mirrors, constantly reflecting back what they think she wants to see. Attractive men are like lights, illuminating both themselves and her with their authentic presence. The practical application of these principles requires practice and patience. You won't master them overnight. Like any skill worth developing, this requires consistent application and gradual refinement. Start with one principle at a time. Maybe focus on improving your presence and attention for a week. Really listen to people when they speak. Notice how this changes the quality of your interactions. Then add strategic disagreement. Practice expressing your genuine opinions without needing others to agree with you. Notice how this creates more engaging, dynamic conversations. Gradually incorporate the other principles as they become natural. Remember, the goal isn't to manipulate anyone into romantic interest. The goal is to express your authentic self with such confidence and presence that the right person will naturally be drawn to you. There's something profound that happens when you stop trying to create attraction and start simply being attractive. The desperation disappears. The neediness evaporates. You begin operating from abundance rather than scarcity. This inner shift is what women pick up on long before they consciously realize it. They sense that you're different from other men. Not because you're trying to be different, but because you're genuinely comfortable with who you are. The Stoics taught that we cannot control external outcomes, only our internal responses. Applied to romantic interactions, this means focusing on being the best version of yourself, rather than trying to force specific reactions from others. When you truly internalize this principle, something magical happens. You become genuinely attractive because you're no longer performing attractiveness. You're simply being a centered, confident man who knows his worth and isn't afraid to express it. This is the ultimate paradox of romantic attraction. The less you need it, the more you create it. The less you chase it, the more it comes to you. The less you perform for it, the more naturally it emerges. But here's what I want you to understand on a deeper level. These principles aren't manipulation tactics. They're not tricks or techniques designed to fool women into being attracted to you. They're expressions of genuine masculine strength and confidence. They're ways of being that naturally create the polarity and tension necessary for romantic chemistry. When you approach conversations from this mindset, you're not trying to get something from her. You're evaluating whether you want to give something to her: your time, attention, and eventual emotional investment. This shift in perspective changes everything. You move from a position of neediness to a position of choice. You move from scarcity to abundance. You move from weakness to strength. And women respond to this energy because it's what they're biologically and psychologically programmed to find attractive. Not because they're shallow or materialistic, but because strength, confidence, and emotional stability signal the ability to provide security and leadership in a relationship. The final principle I want to leave you with is this: authentic confidence is built through internal work, not external validation. You cannot fake the kind of presence and confidence that truly attracts women. It has to be developed from the inside out through genuine self-improvement, self-knowledge, and self-acceptance. This means working on yourself consistently, reading philosophy, developing your skills and interests, building your physical and mental strength, creating a life that you're genuinely excited about. When you have this foundation, conversations become easy because you're not trying to get anything from them. You're simply sharing who you are and discovering who she is. The romantic tension builds, naturally, because you're a man who has something valuable to offer and the confidence to offer it without desperation. Remember this, a woman's romantic interest is earned through demonstration of character, not through clever conversation techniques. The techniques I've shared today are simply ways to authentically express the character you're building. If you found yourself stuck in friendly conversations that never develop into anything more, the solution isn't better lines or more advanced techniques. The solution is becoming a man who naturally creates attraction through his presence, confidence, and authentic self-expression. This work starts today. Not with your next conversation, but with your next moment of self-reflection. Who are you when no one is watching? What do you stand for? What kind of man do you want to become? Answer these questions honestly, then begin the work of becoming that man. When you do, you'll find that turning friendly conversations into romantic interest becomes natural rather than forced, because you'll no longer be trying to create attraction. You'll simply be an attractive man having authentic conversations with interesting people. And that, more than any technique or strategy, is what creates lasting romantic connection. The path forward is clear. The principles are proven. The only question remaining is whether you'll have the courage to implement them. If this changed your perspective on attraction and conversation, comment, "I control my focus." Let me know you're committed to building genuine confidence rather than seeking validation. And remember, the most attractive thing about any man isn't what he says or how he says it. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing exactly who he is and being completely comfortable expressing it to the world.